My name is Laura Figueroa. This is Chapter 1, The Importance of Homeostasis to Survival. First, we will begin by defining homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's ability to keep its internal conditions stable so that its cells can survive. All cells make some specific contribution to maintaining homeostasis. The body uses a regulating control system to maintain homeostasis, known as homeostatic mechanisms. These mechanisms generally share three components. First, we have receptors. These are the lookout. They provide information about specific conditions or stimuli in the internal environment. Next, we have the control center, which is the decision maker. It includes a set point or a particular value. And last, we have effectors. These take action. They cause appropriate responses. In most homeostatic mechanisms, effectors are activated or deactivated so that conditions can return to normal. Effectors cause two different responses in order to maintain homeostasis. The first response we will be discussing is negative feedback. So negative feedback is also known as a negative feedback loop. Negative feedback is a reaction that causes a decrease in function. It causes the output of a system to be lessened. And negative feedback is more common and works to maintain homeostasis. Next, I will go over some examples of negative feedback. Our first example will be the regulation of body temperature. The hypothalamus will react to temperature fluctuations and respond accordingly. In this example, we have when our temperature decreases, meaning we get too cold, our body responds by shivering, which will cause our body temperature to start rising until we return back to our normal body temperature. And if our body were to get too hot, then the body will respond by sweating in order to cool down through evaporation until we return back to normal. Another example will be the regulation of blood pressure. So when our blood pressure increases, the blood vessels will send a signal to the brain. The brain will then send a signal to the heart, which will then slow the heart rate, resulting in the blood pressure returning to normal. Other examples of negative feedback include the regulation of our metabolism and of blood sugar. As with the regulation of body temperature and blood pressure, the receptors will notice a fluctuation or a change. The control center will process the information and activate effectors, and the effectors will then respond via negative feedback in order to return to normal values. The next type of response I will go over will be positive feedback. Positive feedback is also known as positive feedback loops. With positive feedback, it increases the effector activity until a specific outcome is reached, and the stimulus is not reversed, it is instead intensified. One example of positive feedback is childbirth. So during childbirth, the baby's head will press on the cervix, which causes neurons in the brain to activate. These neurons send a signal that leads to the release of the hormone oxytocin. Oxytocin will increase uterine contractions and thus add more pressure on the cervix. This positive feedback loop will continue until the baby is born. Another example of a positive feedback is blood clotting. When the body experiences an injury, like a cut for example, the platelets and proteins in our plasma work together to stop the bleeding by forming a clot over the injury. The reason blood clotting is a positive feedback is that the platelets will continue to be released until the bleeding has stopped. So in conclusion, Homeostasis is important to survival because living organisms need to maintain stable internal conditions in order to properly grow, work, and survive. Without homeostasis, living organisms would not be able to survive. Organisms can only function if their internal conditions are kept within a specific range. These are my references or resources where I got information from, besides my anatomy and physiology textbook. These are the 3 websites that I used. Thank you.